we created the technology. Again, we've been, bashed in the public for, in a very sort of silly way, that, you're skirting the law. And to my mind, compliance is not skirting.
Right. Yeah, the words of your opponents have something to do with and in fact, in the Supreme Court, you were asked, at least in part, whether you had architected the system to do an end run around the existing system.
We absolutely architected the system to comply with the law. And again, and by the way, this is an issue that people sort of, throw out there, well, you could have done this, you could have done that. The issue of how efficient your system is was not litigated. And the efficiency has nothing to do with copyright law.
Right.
And in fact, if it had been litigated, we would have made perfectly a solid case of why we architected the system that we did. So just to put, for this audience's consumption, there were two considerations in our mind. Number one, start with the premise that don't be controversial. So everything a consumer can do in their home, they're just doing in the cloud. So that should be the least controversial of all things. One antenna, one recording, one DVR, one consumer. That should not be controversial. But on top of that, the reason for the architecture, in addition, was, so if you think about the internet, you can't take, let's assume that in LA there's probably like 40 broadcast channels, including all the sub-channels. You can't take the entire spectrum and push it down to a consumer's home. The internet doesn't have that bandwidth, and the internet doesn't work that way. It's not a broadcast machine. So the way to do it is say, okay, let the consumer decide what they want to watch, and then move the tuning logic into the cloud. Now, if you move the tuning logic into the cloud, you've done 90% of the work. And in fact, at that point, it's a lot easier to put a small pickup than to build a mast, deal with permitting, deal with all this other stuff, deal with signal loss in links that come down and signal splitting that goes in. So if you think about what we've done as a pure technological matter, was probably the most efficient way you could get there from here and actually build something. But that issue wasn't litigated, and a lot of people sort of throw all these atmospheric things around. But we designed it to be least controversial, most compliant with the law, and practically how you could actually do it. And all three coincided in our architecture.